Hello everyone, this is Sudhir Kumar Dwivedi, Assistant Professor of Law from Semtech School of Law, Greater Noida. The topic for today's lecture is relevancy of conspiracy under the subject Law of Evidence. First of all, let's see what has been declared relevant under Section 10. It, as per Section 10, things said or done by conspirator in reference to common design is relevant. This is the marginal heading, and it has been prescribed in Section 10 that where there is a reasonable ground to believe that two or more persons have conspired together to commit an offense or an actionable wrong, anything said, done, or written by any one of such person in reference to their common intention after the time when such intention was first entertained by any one of them is relevant fact as against each of the person believed to be so conspiring, as well for the purpose of proving the existence of the conspiracy, as for the purpose of showing that any such person was a party to it. So if we analyze the Section 10, then we find that it declares that the person who have common intention and have conspired together for commission of a crime or any actionable wrong, or then anything said by or done by any one of them after the time when first time this common intention was framed will be entertained against all the person, and it will be helpful for the purpose of proving two things. First, that there was a conspiracy, and that also that the person who were participated in common intention were party to the conspiracy. If we see the analyze illustration, it will be much clearer from the illustration. This is the illustration that there is a reasonable ground exists for believing that A has joined in conspiracy to wage war against the government of India. This is a belief that Mr. A has joined a conspiracy to wage war against the government of India, and there are facts that the fact that B procured arms in Europe for the purpose of the conspiracy, she collected money in Calcutta for the same object like the to waging war against the government of India. D persuaded person to join the conspiracy in Bombay. E published the writing advocating the object in view at Agra, and F transmitted from Delhi to G at Kabul the money which C had collected at Calcutta, and the contents of a letter written by H giving an account of the conspiracy. Each fact are relevant to prove the existence of the conspiracy, that there was a conspiracy, and to prove is complicity in it, although he may have not been participated in all the act, or he have been ignorant of all of the person who were involved in this, and they may have taken place before, and it is also quite possible that these facts have taken place before he joined the conspiracy or after he left it. So if we analyze this illustration, we find that if the charge was against Mr. A that he has been a part of a conspiracy regarding the waging war against the government of India, and it has been established before the court that various other persons who have uh, joined the common tension at various places, and some act has been done by some people, then in such situation it will be conclusion that he was part of the conspiracy, though he was not knowing all the person and he was not aware of the facts, all the facts. But it is showing, since it is a common intention, it is showing the common intention. There people are doing the different act, but the common intention is the waging the war against the government of India. That's why all the person have will be held liable for the conspiracy, and they will also be taken that they has taken the part in the conspiracy. From here the concept of theory of agency is also applicable in this section. On the basis of analysis of this illustration and the section, we can find out the ingredients of section 10 is that there must be an agreement between two or more persons who are alleged to conspire, and the agreement should be to do or cause to be done an illegal act, an act which is not illegal but by illegal means. So, to prove the conspiracy, we know that first requirement is that there is agreement between two or more persons, and that's another requirement is that this agreement is for an illegal act or a legal act by illegal means. This is the ingredients of the conspiracy. Then only you can establish that there was a conspiracy. Now let's see how to check that there was a conspiracy. The conspiracy is generally considered as an inchoate offense, means incomplete offense, because the gist of the this is that the bare engagement and association of a person to break the law in furtherance of the common object. So association of person in furtherance of common object is one. Then the conspiracy itself is not an ingredient of an offense that all the parties have agreed to do a single act. Rather, in course of carrying out the conspiracy, the commission of a number of illegal acts is done to that effect. So it is the, you can say it is not that every person will do a single act, same act. Rather, the aim of the common intention is that to achieve the for what the common intention has been framed, like to achieve the conspiracy, and to achieve that to that conspiracy, the different people will may do different work, and thus it can be said that law does not take notice of the intention of state of mind of the offender, and there must be some overt act to give expression to the intention. So if it is in my mind that I have to commit a war against the government of India, it is not a crime unless and until to this my intention I have expressed by some overt act, means my some act is representing my intention, then only that intention will form the part of the conspiracy, then only one can be held liable for the conspiracy. If only it is in my mind, then it is not a conspiracy. Even if it is between the mind of two persons, then it is not a conspiracy. Some overt act towards that must be done for the to express that intention. What is in my mind? Some overt act must be done. That's why the test is to establish that there is a reasonable ground to believe that a conspiracy existed and such act was done, and the statement made or writing exchanged between the conspirator. This is the test for the conspiracy. Now, what is the relevancy of the conspiracy? As we have already discussed that from section 6 to 55, it is all about the relevancy of the facts, and we discuss in various sections the various types of the fact which has been declared as a relevant fact. Let's see the relevancy of the conspiracy. This has been the rule of conspiracy under section 10, that anything said, done or written by any one of the conspirator against each other is believed to be conspirating and is relevant. As we discussed in the example, whatever has been said by the person who has associated for the common intention of the commission of the waging war against the government of India is relevant, whether the all person are knowing to each other or not, but since they are doing the different act for the purpose of common intention, that is the waging war against the government of India. So everything whatever was said or done by written by the any member of the that uh, group will be used against each other and will be relevant. Once there was a sufficient material to reasonable belief that there was consent and connection between persons charged with common design. Okay, so once there is reason to believe there are facts to show that all the person who are involved in this wrongful act, yeah, you can say legal act, and if once it has been proved that they were consented for that, that is to prove the common design, then that is important factor. It is immaterial as to whether they were stranger to each other. We have already discussed things. The one point has to be proved is that they have consented for the common object, or the ignorant of role of each other. What the role of different person may be different. We have already discussed in that example. If someone was collecting money, someone was joining other persons in this conspiracy, the role of different person may be different, or that they did not perform any one of more such act by joint effort. It is not necessary. uh, I already said that it is not necessary that everyone is doing a single act. It may be that different persons are doing different act. Their common intention is that, common object is that to achieve that particular object. Now, in Ghulam Din, which was a state of Jammu Kashmir, it was held that in a trial of government employees who were carriage contractors, when there is a finding that there was a close relationship between the carriage contractors and the government employees who had acted in consent, absence of charge of conspiracy between two was not material. What held in this court that even if the charge of conspiracy was not made by the court at the time of the framing of the charge, but at the later stage of the trial, it was found out that the person who are accused in a case, like in this case, the government employee and the contractors, and it is sufficient fact or evidence are there, relevant facts are there to establish that there was consent of government employees and contractors, then the, you can say, court may presume that there was a conspiracy, though the charge of the conspiracy was not made by the court at the initial stage of the trial. Now let's see, the principle of the conspiracy is that the section the essence of the section 10 lies within the expression common intention. We have discussed that the common intention is that when the people want to achieve, there is a meeting of mind. The very basic thing you must have studied under section 34 of the Indian Penal Code, that the very basic requirement is the meeting of the mind. So the example which we taken is the meeting of the mind was like different people were doing different things, but mind, what is the meeting of the mind in that example was that they have to wage war against the government of India. So it is the very essence of the section 10 is that common intention, and the word common intent signify a common intention existing at the time when the thing said was done or written by any one of them. This common intention must exist at that point. Now, let's see a few cases. In Shardul Singh versus State of Bombay, it was held that principle underlying the reception of evidence under Section 10 of the Indian Evidence Act, the Statements Act, and writing of co-conspirator as against the other is on the theory of agency. As we discussed, since it is the if we are holding liable someone for act of another one, you can say there'll be somewhere concept of agency is arising there. So whatever said and written by one conspirator is maybe used against the other conspirator. That's why it is based on it was held in this case that this is based on the principle of theory of agency. As we know, the theory of agency has also been referred to by the Supreme Court in Badri Rai versus State of Bihar, where it was held that the offering of bribe along with the statement was admissible not only against the first appellant but also against the second appellant on the basis of the theory of agency. So suppose one person is giving the bribe and another person is making a statement by standing there regarding these incident that the giving of the bribery, then that statement may will be considered as a part of conspiracy, and that person may also be liable for the conspiracy under section 10 on the basis of theory of agency. Then you can say it is the principle of common sense that one person alone can never be held guilty of criminal conspiracy for the simple reason that he cannot conspire. That is very obvious reason that a single person can't do the conspiracy. Now, it was held in by the House of Lords in a very famous case, Malchi versus R, in which it was observed by the court that conspiracy consists not merely in the intention of two or more, but in the agreement of two or more to do an unlawful act by unlawful means, so long as such a design rests in the intention only, it is not indictable. When two agree to carry it into effect, the very plot is an act in itself, and the act of each of the parties, promise against promise, actus contra actum, capable of being enforced, lawful, punishable if for a criminal object or for the use of criminal means. We have discussed this principle that unless and until it is in the mind, it is not an act. Some overt act must be done. So if it is in my mind, it is in maybe in some other's mind that we have to wage war against the government of India. But once this mind was consented by each other, then this very particular point is considered, may be considered as act. Because if you focus on the line, so long as such a design rests in the intention only is not indictable, but when two agree to carry it into effect, the very plot is an act, and that may be and considered as an act. And then for only the when you are agreeing for the commission of the crime, then it will be considered as a conspiracy. Then there is a very famous case, Kehar Singh versus Delhi administration. What held in this court? In this case, it was held by the court that where there was some crime was going on, people were killing few or hitting some persons, and there was some conversation at the place of the incident between the between, or you can say there were more persons there among the persons who were doing that act. And when the question was asked, but since the people were the prosecution side was not able to prove the conspiracy, but when the question was asked regarding the what was the conversation among them at the time of the commission of the crime, then they were not able to give definite answer. Definite answer. The court held on the basis of this, it can be inferred that there was some gist of the conspiracy before the commission of the crime. The application of doctrine laid down in section 10 is strictly based on reasonable ground that two or more persons have conspired together to commit the offense. Once reasonable ground to believe that several persons have conspired to commit an offense exists, the acts and the declaration of particular person in reference to the common intention or relevant fact although that person may not so much as even to know of the existence of many others engaged in the conspiracy or were utter strangers to him. So, in nutshell, it can be said that the very basic requirement uh, is that two or more persons have conspired together to commit an offense, and if there is a reason to believe that this exists, then if whatever said, done, written by any of the conspirator, whether the person who were engaged in this are knowing each other or not, all will be held liable for the conspiracy. Now, in laws, it can be summarized like that: regard must also be had to the limits within which the class of evidence can be used, and there must be a reasonable ground to believe that two or more persons have conspired together to commit an offense. When the confession was made by the accused after the common intention of the parties was no longer in existence, Section 10 cannot be invoked by against the co-accused. So it was held. Nutshell, it was held in some cases, and the conclusion is that if the whatever said and written must be at the time when this common intention was existing, and if that has been closed, and later on when there is a trial and one co-accused appears and spoke about the thing that he is admitting the offense, and he is explaining the thing that who were the person who were involved in that case, that statement of co-accused will not be considered as a part of the conspiracy. Reason being the common intention, the common has been seized the moment uh, when the act was achieved, or the common object was achieved, the moment that ceased. So whatever is stated by the person who were associated in that conspiracy after the that common intention ceased will not be considered as a part of conspiracy, and that will not be labeled under section 10 of the Indian Evidence Act. That's all about the relevancy of the conspiracy under section 10 of the Indian Evidence Act. Thank you.